the door. Okay. So for our next talk, we're going to have Felix Frank talking about rapid testing setups for Puppet. If you've used, I don't know if any of you have used the Puppet users mailing list before, but you probably talked to Felix. So, it was inevitable. It was going to happen eventually. It's okay. I thought it was going to be me, but it wasn't me. So I'm at least glad about that. So if you've used the mailing list, if you've chatted with folks in the Puppet community, you've probably come across Felix at some point. In fact, he's probably helped some of you before. So it's great to have him here up on the stage helping folks again with his talk. So round of applause.
Thanks. Also, thanks to Kara. By the way, I don't know about you, but being at a Puppet event without Dawn is kind of strange to me, but I really feel that Kara's killing it down there, so double thanks. Yeah, Kara. So as Kara said, we'll be talking about, hey, there's something missing there. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, presentation without text, that's a new one. Yeah, that would be the way around this. Okay, hey, I just started talking while trying to tech is not on my side today. I try to fix this as we go, and as Kara said, this is about Puppet testing, Puppet test environments, and there are breathing sounds. This is okay. I'm moving this. Can you? Right. That's what she said. Never mind. Yeah, Puppet test environments. I'll introduce myself shortly. Kara told you, I'm Felix. I'm from Berlin. I work at ampex.net. We are a hosting and managed services provider. We are. Oh, that's good. That's better. Now we're talking. You know, tech person. Puppet test environments. Also, we'll talk a bit about running Puppet from source. And yeah, I'm Felix, ampex.net, managed services and hosting provider. We are hiring. If you're looking for a job in Berlin that deals with Linux, deals with Puppet, or you know someone who fits this description, just holler me. Perhaps we can set something up. I'm Frank almost anywhere except Twitter. Someone's hugging that there. If you know them, please tell them to, you know. So, wait, this still is not right. There's still something missing there. I keep tweaking here. So we're getting there, sorry. Basically, we will talk about one thing that is the center of it all, and there will be a little more around that, but basically you'll learn just one simple trick that will go a long way to help you with your Puppet testing stuff. Before we start, quick rehash. Fortunately, we have seen this a lot today in talks that were before me. The basic building blocks of Puppet, which is the agent at the center of everything, which collects facts, forwards those to the master when making a request for a catalog to apply, and the master will compile a manifest that is specific to the agent, using the fact values, and the agent will work with that catalog, which is just a abstract representation of what is defined. Now, Nico has shown how Puppet Apply is used. Quick hands, who's been aware of Puppet Apply and has used Puppet Apply before? Oh, that's quite a lot, nice. Puppet Apply basically does the same thing. The manifest is local, and the compiler that, or the piece that will compile the manifest is the same that actually runs in a master. So, yeah, with Puppet Apply, you get a master and agent in one, if you will. So let's get to it. Puppet, at the end of the day, is a piece of software, and software does not always do what we expect. There can be bugs, there can be complications. Perhaps sometimes you're plain using it wrong. So if something happens, something does not work as you expect it to, and it's just weird, and usually it's up to you as the user to find out what's the cause of it, at least to some extent. Why is that? Well, you can go ahead and ask someone else for help, but this can be difficult if you have no strategy to gather at least some initial information about what's going on. The usual strategy to that is you create some kind of lab environment in which you can play around and just repeat the mistake or whatever strange effect happens over and over. This has some advantages. You can, as I said, you can do this as often as you want. Watch what happens. You can make modifications to your code so that you can narrow the scope and see what could likely be the general area where the strangeness comes from. Perhaps you can even eliminate the problem by iteration. So in the best case, you narrow it down until you see, oh yeah, so that was that. Well, that was obvious, but doesn't always work out this way. Perhaps you even need to make a bug report, and for that it is very helpful to, if you have arrived at a very simple case for reproducing your issue. So how do we create such lab environments that are suitable to run Puppet in a testing fashion? Sure, you can spin up a new virtual machine or actual machine and install Puppet, do whatever you need. Or if you don't feel you want to take all this effort to install Puppet, you may just want to clone the original machine instead. There's solutions like Vagrant, Docker. There's actually lots of ways to get a machine that is just a representation of this general concept of, yeah, well, I'm building a model of what is usually happening, and yeah, I can use this to simulate everything in a very realistic fashion. And that's all fine. I mean, this is a surefire way, and if you have good tools to achieve any of these, then I'm very much a proponent of doing something like this. But it is a certain overhead, and well, for agents, it's obviously simple. Whenever you spin up a machine in your setup and install Puppet, this is an agent usually, right? I mean, you connect it to your master. You got a new agent. Building a new master, that's a bit more involved. You have to think carefully about what with SSL, will this be its own CA, or do I hook it up to the existing CA? But then you have to make sure that the production agents don't connect to your test master, etc. It's always a bit, yeah, it's either messy or dangerous, and always a bit of a pain in the neck. So what I propose, it's basically just run Puppet as some non-root user, your own user perhaps. And that's it. Other questions? No, just pulling your leg. Okay, you caught that. Great. But still, if there's one thing that I'd like every one of you to take away from this session, it's this: you can just run Puppet with your usual unprivileged user account, and all Puppet configuration, all data, all manifests, everything is loaded from the .puppet directory in your home directory. And this is pretty powerful because it allows you to try all kinds of weird things that you wouldn't perhaps dare trying in a usual environment. So yeah, time for a little demo. There's some things that I like doing in order to make testing really simple. For one, you want to set the gem home variable to some place in your home directory or somewhere you can write, but the home directory is a logical choice, and then make sure that your search path will take binaries that are installed through those gems into account, so that you can run those directly. And then it's just a matter of installing a gem. So let's see how that works. Okay. So I've created a fresh user, if you will, who has... oh, there's a question? I can try. Sorry. Yeah, these breathing noises are really... Can you still hear me talk? And you can still hear me breathing. Great. Next try. Still audible? Yay. All right, thanks for the feedback. What was I going to do? This box has no global Puppet installed. Don't really have a use for that. We will see why. And yeah, that's I've prepared the gem home variable just as we've discussed. So let's see how this works. Let's get a 3.x version just for sake of nostalgia, right? Also, I'm adding some switches to make sure that no documentation is generated. You can follow along, and you please feel free to omit those switches, no RI and no RDoc. But if you do, you will likely be following along at a bit of a distance because that takes a bit of time. Okay, while it's hopefully downloading in the background, yeah, let's oh, there it comes. Wi-Fi has been a little flaky, but that's looking weird. Yeah, I mean that's the downside of choosing such a large font. I hope everybody can read everything, but yeah, things get a little weird. So, the nice things about using gems instead of packages is that it's that simple. You can just get the gem you want. You can install it in your home. You don't have to mess with existing setups on your machine. You just get the gem where you want it. You can also get another gem of a different version and install this in parallel. For this kind of use, gems are a pretty sane choice. So now Puppet binary is found, and you can see its version. Did I remember to do cleanup in the .puppet? No, it's still pretty crowded. Let's just get rid of pretty much everything. I've prepared a simple manifest, but I think modules, SSL, var, puppet conf, that can all go. YOLO, right? So, what we can do, for example, is you can use almost all of your usual Puppet workflows. So, what I'd like to be the first thing with a fresh install, which this basically is to get the standard lib module, right? We don't want to use Puppet without the standard lib module. Don't let your friends use Puppet without the standard lib module. There, that was fast, and it's a little garbled, but you can see it works just like we used to. It downloads and installs the module, and now we see it in our modules. So, yeah. I think the next step for testing would be to launch an actual master. You could just use this command and launch a Puppet master. This will work. I think for testing, it's more sensible to make sure that Puppet stays in the foreground, and we can actually see some output. Now here, the master has now made the original setup for the whole SSL infrastructure. There's a new CA, and agents can immediately connect. So let's just try in another window to run an agent. I think this will fail. Oh, and the error message almost fits. So, right, this is a typical error. I think people might have encountered this with new machines. You just can't build a connection because there's no route to host, or the server just cannot be found. The issue is that this is basically a fresh install. All settings are default, and this means that the agent assumes that it can reach the Puppet master by just resolving the host name Puppet, which won't resolve here. So since this will not make much sense anyway, because the master has generated a certificate itself with a specific CN, it makes sense to check out what the name of the master is. In this case, it's just the unqualified host name of my machine, which is Garris. So, well, the most direct approach, of course, is to just pass this as a flag, so that now a connection is built. What's happening now is that all the functions and stuff from the standard lib module are being synchronized from the master to the agent, and now we've managed to do a catalog run. Yeah, this output is really fun. All right, this worked, but I mean, I don't want to pass around this flag all the time. So what you can do is create your own puppet.conf right in the .puppet directory. We like to use the main section, not master agent. Safest thing. So now it shouldn't be so noisy either. Okay, this was a pretty clean run. Oh, by the way, I should have shown you the manifest that I'm using for testing, which is just I've only the site pp. I could have installed modules now and referenced those. Yay! So what this is towards the top, there is one notice function call, which will happen on the master side. And there's one file being managed in /temp. And Puppet makes sure that its content includes the current date. So let's take a quick look at the master side of things. This is the window of the master. Let's clean this up and do one more agent run and watch what the master has to say about this, which is this notice, right? And this notice, compiling site pp, that is just what's in the manifest. So you can put debugging or whatever log you want into your local manifests, and you will get the output from your undemonized master. And then you get your usual "I just compiled something" message. Of course, you can also enable verbose and debug mode for the master. For testing, this can also be very useful, but well, on this terminal, that would make things even more unreadable. So the agent itself does its usual work, and can we see a change it's made? Yeah, more or less, right? So there's the file that we manage, and it keeps synchronizing its content to whatever the master considers to be the current date. So yeah, this is the most basic thing you can do in your home. But as I said, you can go crazy and build. You can basically copy your whole manifest from production or from wherever to your home and go crazy with it. Will just work. Okay, so let's go on right with the presentation, because I'm a little short on time, I fear. So why is it so simple? I think I think especially when testing, it's always good to take a look under the hood, know how things work internally, and I think it's pretty interesting how Puppet manages to allow you to just work in this fashion. And as you will see, you can still do a lot of digging in the configuration options. Right, if you start a Puppet agent or master or apply, it will look up its configuration and data in your home, because there are very reasonable default values for certain settings. And as you will see, that's not even a lot of settings. Who's ever used the --config print option? Yeah, that's a couple people. That's actually a pretty useful flag. It allows you great inspection, introspection, and you can tell what the configuration changes you're making, what their impact is, what's happening if you tweak a certain setting. For example, you can, if a setting doesn't do what you expected, you can use this flag to find out why it didn't work. So what you do is you use the subcommand that you would normally use, for example, Puppet Master, because Puppet Master may have a different configuration than Puppet Agent. So you should always tell Puppet which command you want to inspect, so that you really get the correct information. And then you can pass the name of the config setting to report, and in this case, it correctly tells us that the site pp is in the appropriate directory in a home. You can also pass the sudo flag all. So with --config print all, you get a dump of all the settings, and you can grab for a certain value, for example, to find out how that is defined, how does that come to be. So in this case, if you're wondering, where should I put my Puppet conf, and why is it there? You can just take a look. in what settings does this appear, and it becomes pretty obvious that you can change the config setting to pass a different puppet.conf location to Puppet. Of course, you can also just pipe it to less or your pager or not at all and get an overview about what settings are there, what could I tweak, what's in this. You can also, without messing with your puppet.conf, you can just try and see what happens if you change a certain setting. So for example, you can, on the command line, change the configuration of conf_dir, which is, well, where should configuration be stored. In this case, I've told Puppet to use temp for that, and see what this does to other options. In this case, manifest, and yeah, in this case, I could just make Puppet use a site pp somewhere from temp or wherever I want it. So for to make it possible that your whole home directory is just used, that everything is taken from there. I mean, the SSL information is there, temporary files like state information, the manifests are there, modules are installed there. This all works courtesy of what I like to call cascading settings, and these are things that that basically inherit values. So you get two trees of settings, and these there are two settings at the root that basically control the default of everything else. And if you change these, then you move all your Puppet data to very different locations. So let's see an example. There is a config setting called state file, which controls where the state.yaml is placed, which is just a file for Puppet to do some state retention. And it defaults to a location in which depends on yet another setting, which is state_dir. So you can either directly configure where to put the state file, or you can just tell Puppet where is the state_dir, where should all my state information go. Or you don't even do that, but just do something to the var_dir, because state_dir defaults to a location inside the var_dir. Right? All variable data, all runtime data is stored on the var_dir, and therefore all state data is underneath that as well. Yeah, and since both of these settings default to a location in your home directory if you're not root and not Puppet, that's the very neat and clean way to allow you to do everything in your .puppet. Also, in theory, or if you want that, you can just tweak these two settings to have your data anywhere else you choose. But I think .puppet is as good a place as any. Right, default ways. We've heard a bit about Puppet 4 and how things will change. All of this strictly applies to Puppet 3 only. In Puppet 4, things are a bit different because the file system layout has changed a bit. Martin has given us some examples. It's not radically different. So the structure in your .puppet will look a bit different, but the general approach will still work. You will still be able to test like this. If you think of testing things in Puppet 2 or are generally using Puppet 2, then this will not work. All these tricks were basically enhancements in Puppet 3.0. In 2.x, you're basically stuck with doing the old-fashioned way, build a new machine or something along these lines. So, in consequence, this means that any user on your machines can run their own master with their own CA. So also, the user can run agents, but the agent obviously has some limitations. The agent that you run from your unprivileged user can only do the things that your user is allowed to do, that your user is capable of doing. So I managed a file in my test manifest, but this file was in /temp. I have write permissions in temp, so I can manage files there. I could not manage, say, /etc shadow. Same for cron. I could manage my own cron jobs for the user that runs Puppet, but I could not manage the cron jobs of root or any other user. Package. I cannot install deb package, RPM packages in the system if my user doesn't have the permissions for that. I can manage my gems in my home, but not the global packages, and so on. So sure, you cannot try everything with the unprivileged agent. Of course, what you can do is try and hook up a privileged agent to your test master. This will work, but obviously, you should be very careful. Puppet apply, same deal. So the compiler aspect just works. Everything from the catalog application phase is limited to your permissions. Let's speak about security. Oh, there's a question. So the question is if I have tried, or if I think it's sensible, do I take this right? To build an alias to say sudo puppet or whatever to get the privileges at the time of running the agent. Well, sure. You can do whatever is necessary to get the agent in a root context, but at that time you should be aware that this is no longer your unprivileged agent. It's basically just the agent that you would usually run as root. Oh, okay. So your idea is I would manipulate, say, the provider or whatever to be able to operate from within an unprivileged context. That strikes me as a really dangerous thing to do. So I wouldn't recommend going this route. It's I think from a security perspective, it would be wiser to make sure that really only the privileged agent gets privileges, so that you can always be sure that Puppet doesn't do weird things that you don't expect. Because that's bound to blow in your face at some point. Speaking of security, security kind of important to a lot of people. If it's not important to you, perhaps it should be. So the question that is hopefully in everyone's mind is, will this enable spoofing? I mean, as I said, any user on a system where there's Puppet can launch a master. This includes your production master. If anyone has a login shell on this machine, they can run basically what is a rogue master. So can they intercept the requests from agents and pass whatever catalogs they want to them? Well, sort of, not really. While Puppet uses a port that is not privileged, which is why we can run an unprivileged master that uses the regular port, which is in the 8000s. They still won't be able to get a certificate that matches the one of the production master, right? The master certificate needs to be signed by the CA that the agents have stored, so the agent can tell if there's a fake master basically talking to them. Of course, if you spin up a new agent and they make an initial connection, they will download whatever CA they are presented by the master. So what you can do is just make sure your master never gives up its part, because this way no unprivileged user will be able to take the part for themselves and trick new agents. Another way is to pre-share this CA cert, right? Make sure that any new machine has the CA cert, so that they can, from the get-go, make sure they are talking to an appropriate master. Actually, scratch that. Always do this. Always put your CA cert in your base images, whatever you use for provisioning. That's security. Remember how I said I want you to take one thing away from this. Make it either this or the other thing. Okay. Running from source. This is pretty useful for especially when you've encountered what you consider a bug and want to find out whether it's specific to a certain version of Puppet. So from source, you can quickly determine if other versions are affected or if this is specific to your version of Puppet. Also, of course, if you want to try and make changes to Puppet and try those. Running from source with Ruby is not as intuitive if you're not much of a Ruby person, but like I used to be, more from a Perl, C, what have you world. So if you just download a tarball or clone the Git repository and unzip a certain version and run the Puppet binary that is in that tree, that will possibly not do what you expect, because let's look at what the Puppet binary actually looks like, and it's this. It could look slightly different for you depending on your packaging and your version, but yeah, Puppet is 8 lines of code, and only 2 of these actually do anything. The other are basically boilerplate. So yeah, there's not much there to be different in the checkout that you're using, because Puppet relies on Ruby's require, and basically the binary loads everything as a library. So what you could do is you play with the lookup path of Ruby and make sure that it uses your source. You can look at this path by outputting the $: variable, which will give you a result, something like this. And yeah, by setting the Ruby lib environment variable, you can prepend something to that. So in this case, I would make Ruby actually load the library from my checkout. But this is not a very good way of going about this, because it can break really easily and it's cumbersome. Also, if you are using gems, which I suggested earlier, then that can yield some really weird results, because the lookup is all jumbled up. The way to tackle this, the best way I think, is bundler. And are there users of bundler? People that use bundler for things? Okay, there's a few. In the Ruby world, that's very handy, because managing gems for things, for applications, be it Rails, be it Puppet, whatever, can be really painful. If you are using gems, then likely, or in the most basic way of using gems, you parallel install lots of them. So I've picked 3 that might be on a system. Usually you'll have lots more, and each of them can be there in 1 version, in 3 versions, in whatever, because each of your Ruby applications needs different versions of different things, and also different versions of, say, Puppet depend on different versions of the gems. So what bundler gives you is the gem file, which defines some rules. And by these rules, a bundler picks the appropriate versions of your gems and loads exactly those. And this just makes it possible to run everything. It's really simple. If you check out the version that you want to test, what you do is you enter the directory with a gem file and use the simple command bundle install, which will get all gems that you may be missing. And from that point on, you can use bundle exec, which is basically a wrapper that will give you just that semantics that we just looked at, where the appropriate gem versions are being loaded by the Ruby process. I have a demo for that, but I really am short on time now, so I'll have to skip it. If someone's really interested in seeing how this works, we can do this afterwards. Why would you want to run from source? I've scratched this for a bit, but I think running from source and tinkering is not a thing that is something that only developers should care about, because you can contribute without writing any Ruby code. As a matter of fact, there's a huge amount of bugs being reported to Puppet, and it's hard to keep track of everything. There's only so many developers, and if you see a bug that you like solved, then it's really helpful to be able to find this simple way of reproducing it. So with the ability to run from source and run different versions, you can very easily create this reproduction case and can also perhaps give information on when this might have been introduced, in which versions it appears, and in which it doesn't. So, yeah, I hope you feel a little inspired to perhaps try this and update a few bugs that you care about. So, putting everything together, this gives us the ability to move our manifests to home, get modules to home, and run whatever we want with our user account. You can use Puppet Master, Puppet Agent, apply basically the whole Puppet tool chain. It should all just work. And thanks to Git and Bundler, you can very easily run any version of Puppet. You can try before upgrading, do any sort of experiments, and yeah, it's all just a few commands away. Before we go to Q&A, do I have 2 minutes? 1 minute. Let's make it quick. One word on my behalf. This word is read. But don't just read anything. I have this book. It's good. It's good for beginners. It's also good for people who are a little more comfortable. Just, yeah, check it out. Give it a whirl. Let me know. Another word on your behalf, or all our behalf. That word is diversity. If you look to your right, then to your left, chances are you've looked at 2 white dudes, which is a problem, I think. Or if it's not a problem to you, it's at least an indication of a general problem that we as a community have. And it's a problem that we need to fix. No one else is going to fix it for us. So I think this should not be the typical image of a tech conference or any tech event. Let's see and try really hard to make the change to get from where we are. There's tons of things you can do, little things, more important things. Please, let's not be these people forever. And that's it. Thank you. More questions? So yeah, the question is, what can you even test with the unprivileged user? Because most things just won't work. Say syncing files, managing users, etc. So the things you can try are so you're struggling with this effect. Why is this class not included? I've clearly put the include there. I just can't figure out why it won't work. Or parser issues are very can be debugged straightforward. You can also tweak the whole configuration in crazy ways. So you basically you don't want to touch the configuration of the production master for everything. You have to try it somewhere. So that's something that is very easy in your home, and well. Managing specific ways of managing a given resource, that's for that is not especially useful. I mean, you could likely do this with your development environment on the production master, right? You can do a test manifest there and run it on a machine where you want to test with a regular agent. But if you have some really experimental stuff going on that won't be able to run from your production master, you can do it as your local master and connect the root agent to that. That still works. Please. Very good question. Question was, why didn't I have to sign a certificate when I demoed this? Well, the answer, basically the master generated its own certificate, which matched its own FQDN. This certificate is in the SSL directory in .puppet. The test agent uses the same SSL directory in .puppet. And since the agent has the same FQDN, it will just use the same certificate, and it's already signed by the master. But for fun, let's just use another one. Right. So now, what you would usually expect is a CSR is generated. I can't do anything unless until it's signed. If I try again, then I just get no certificate. But let's see. Right, since I'm master and agent in one, I can just locally see the CSR. I can now sign it as usually, and that will just work. Whee. Okay, thanks. Good question.
So we're actually out of time for questions. I'm so sorry.
That's cool.
Thanks
again.
Felix.